Ladies and gentlemen, guys and girls, join me in welcoming our very special guest, Mr. Harsh Mariwala, Chairman of Marico, the company that makes brands like hair oil Parachute, edible oil Saffola, brands that are household names in a country of over 1 billion people, and they've been for decades. So to say that Mr. Mariwala knows something about the Indian consumer or the Indian market is not enough for the expanse of his experience and the depth of his expertise. And today, Mr. Mariwala is here not to share just what happened post the pandemic, how is he going to sort of what are the trends shaping up, how is he dealing with it. No, he has a revelation to make, and we are going to get to that right on top of this interview. Mr. Mariwala, you are going to document 5 decades of experience in building a company like Marico and creating brands like the ones that I mentioned, and how you've come about from a pre-liberalization India to post-liberalization India to the digital India that it is right now.
So yes, I think you have hit the nail on the head. It so happens that I've almost written a book, which is in the final stages of writing and going through the script. And once that is done, I'm going to send it to the our publishers, which is Penguin Random House. And hopefully, depending on how the pandemic pans out, we will decide when to launch it, but most likely in the month of March, April. We want things to normalize rather than doing everything virtually.
Your learnings are not just coming out in a book, you are also running this sort of community called Ascent. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what is this initiative? For starters, we know that this is a monthly or a quarterly congregation of startup owners, etc., who have absolutely no link with you other than being friends and family, I guess. Not family, friends and people you know about, acquaintances.
So this is one way of my giving something back to the society. I have a strong belief that entrepreneurs add a lot of value to all the stakeholders. So whether it is the owners or whether it is the customers or the society or their own employees or the associates, and if we are able to increase their effectiveness, if we are able to help them scale their business up, then they will grow, and in that process, the whole economy will grow. And can I do it by actively involving in that process? So it's my way of giving something back more in terms of time. I spend about 20 to 30% of my time on Ascent, and I have a whole team which is working full time on this. And as you rightly put it, it is basically based on peer learning. So entrepreneurs learn from each other. We have something like 650 entrepreneurs in Bombay and Chennai, and now we opened up the membership to all the entrepreneurs who are based in any part of India, and all they have to do is to apply on our website www.ascentfoundation.in, and I think there will be a selection process. Basically, we are not looking at startups; we are more looking at those organizations who've achieved a certain minimum turnover and are at least breaking even. So for services, you have to have a turnover of 1 crore rupees, and for manufacturing led businesses, you have to have a 5 crore turnover. And you have to apply, and then you will go through a selection process. And after that, once you are admitted, you have many options of learning. You have to learn from your own, what you call trust groups. We have many conclaves, hurdles. In fact, this year the conclave is there from end of November for 4 days, and we have very good speakers in these conclaves. So this year, because it is virtual, we have broken it up into every day, say 2 hours. So one of the days is Kiran Mazumdar is speaking, one day is Raghuram Rajan and Deepak Parekh is speaking, and many other good speakers are there. And I think for any entrepreneurs, not only in India but outside India, this will be a very fascinating learning. So we have those conclave and hurdles, and lots of webinars now in today's days, where how to cope up with this pandemic is another thing which we have proactively taken. We get very good feedback from entrepreneurs. They're very happy, and the most I think the most important thing is they don't have to pay any money, to join. At the most, they have to cover some costs, which are our event costs. So if you go for a conclave, normally it costs money for us to host the event at a 5-star and pay for the day. So we charge a flat sum of about 10,000 rupees, which covers everything. all the events and whatever we do. And actually, that's just to defray our costs of holding the events. But all the administrative costs of the initiative are actually borne by me from my personal side. And I also give, as I said, about 20-25% of my time to this initiative.
Let me
Yeah.
so therefore take this conversation to your area of expertise, which is the India's consumer. What is happening there? The pandemic has broke the back of many people, honestly speaking.
Yes.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, your products are in the sweet spot of being necessities in many cases, if not the entire
Yes.
portfolio, but the marquee ones.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and the most recent numbers have shown some 5 to 6% volume growth, and which is I think spectacular in these times. Would you tell us,
Yeah.
what is the recovery that you are seeing, and
Yeah.
how does it fit into the bigger picture?
So yes, you're absolutely right. We are fortunate to have products, and we are in a business which is growing, and we have just given our guidance for our quarter two, that is July September financials, which where we are likely to grow by almost by high single digit or double digit. I don't have the exact figures, both in terms of top line and bottom line. And luckily, many of our products are so-called essentials, so people have to use these products. So at one level, the business is doing well in terms of top line, bottom line, and I'm really, really fortunate when I compare ourselves with many other businesses which are struggling. So thank God. I mean, I just have to be so grateful for whatever we are in. I don't think it was planned. Nobody knew what was coming in terms of pandemic, but it just so happened that we are in the sweet spot. So, in terms of consumer, I want to talk about two things. One is pre-pandemic. The entry barriers in our sector, FMCG as it is called, fast-moving consumer goods, have gone down because of the emergence of e-commerce and because of the emergence of digital marketing. In the earlier days, if somebody wanted to launch a new product, they had to have a distribution network to cater to something like 2-3 million outlets, which would be very, very costly. And unless you had a certain critical mass of 1,000 crore plus turnover, you would not be able to afford that. And secondly, you had to advertise on television, which would again mean a huge expenditure. So for a startup, there were a lot of odds against entering the FMCG segment. But with the emergence of e-commerce and modern trade, you can prototype your new products under in these options. And also you can use digital marketing, which is not as expensive as television marketing, and as try out these products. And I think what that has done is we have seen a whole host of newer entrepreneurs entering the consumer sectors. We have bought one of the companies, which is Beardo, which is making products for the beard industry, because at some stage in their journey, when they reach a certain level of turnover, and when they have to expand it to the physical distribution, um, that time they find it very difficult to do so. So then they are forced to divest, or arrive at some sort of alliance with somebody else. So that's how we bought. But I see many companies like Mama Earth, Boat, and many other companies which are doing exceedingly well because of the entry barriers being removed. So that was one thing I want to talk about. The other thing I want to talk about, post-pandemic, what has happened is there is a huge shift in consumer habits towards certain categories of products. So the overall awareness for health, whether it is healthy foods or the need to exercise or to do meditation or mental health, has increased exponentially. So if you are in those businesses, including immunity builders, I think you are in a good wicket. You will do well, and I see this trend continuing because people have realized that you have to lead the right lifestyle if you want to avoid diseases, and many of our current diseases are to do with leading wrong lifestyle, whether it is obesity or whether it is cardio issues or diabetes or even cancer. If you lead the right lifestyle and healthy foods and exercise and mental health, then the chances of your getting these diseases is much lower. So health, immunity is one aspect. Another is hygiene. People have realized that they have to be far more hygienic in their personal habits in terms of washing of not only their hands but also what they're consuming. And luckily, we saw this as an opportunity in the early part of pandemic, and we were the first company to launch a product which was for cleaning fruits and vegetables. We call it Veggie Clean, which has met with a very good response. So sanitizers, VeggieClean, disinfectants, something which is caught on, and it will continue that journey. The third thing which is done is, I think people have become far more conscious of environment and sustainability. So anything you are doing in that area will get more traction, especially youngsters. People saw when there was a lockout that all of a sudden, the skies were clearer, there was no pollution, the air we were breathing was much purer. So there is heightened awareness for environment and sustainability. And finally, the biggest shift which has happened at the consumer level is the digital shift. So all of us have been interacting, whether it is Zoom calls, or working from home, or e-buying through e-commerce sites, or e-learning for children. So a whole host of, or e-consultation, doctors, e-medicines. So the whole digital part has become part of the habit, and we have seen a huge growth rate in all these businesses, and that is likely to continue. So there are lots of opportunities coming in from this pandemic. So, they say that you should never waste a crisis. I think organizations need to learn what are the new opportunities which this pandemic is throwing up, and which are likely to sustain once things are back to normal.
One thing, Mr. Mariwala, you cited a lot of things that have changed, but one thing that
Yes.
has probably gone from bad to worse is Indian frugality in the wake of the pandemic, which is a necessity right now because a lot of people have lost livelihoods, or at least are fearing the
Yes.
loss of it at this stage in the salaried class.
True, true.
There is a need to revive demand back, and there are a whole host of
Yes.
announcements that have just come recently. What is your
Yes.
verdict on it? Do you think it's good enough, or was there a need to do more to revive demand and give people the confidence to go out there and buy?
We must realize that the government has their hands are tied. We can't compare ourselves with the developed countries like USA and UK, which is giving far more doors to the troubled sector. So I don't think the government is likely to do that. But the key initiatives the government has to take is to revive demand. And the first set of initiatives, which happened about a few months back, were more on the supply side. And now the time has come for giving stimulus on the demand side. And one small step the government has taken is in last week or a few days back, when the government announced some loan against the LTA for the government employees. But we need to do much more.
And just before we let you go, I really need to ask you this one question. I think for quite some time, for many years, every time somebody from your company or your competitors would speak about India, when there is a trouble in the cities, we keep saying rural demand is the way to go. Don't worry about it. In villages in India are still growing, and they are growing robustly. But I think in the last 6 months, one disturbing trend that has come about, or at least a reality check, if not disturbing, is essentially that the real money, the bottom line, the margin comes from the cities. And I think that has been a learning. Would you want to share with us some thoughts on that?
So I anticipate that there will be the rural growth will improve, not only in this year but going forward. It's very important to ensure that we drive higher rural growth, because I think there are a lot of youth who are in rural areas, and if they don't get opportunity to occupy themselves, we may have a social issue. So whether it is farming or whether it's technology, or now, I mean, people are saying working from home doesn't have to be in Bombay. I mean, if you have a full-time job which is from working from home, you can be in a small village also, as long as there is connectivity. So I think it's very important that we drive growth in small towns, in rural areas, so people in those towns are not forced to come to big cities and lead a life which is away from their families, in an environment which may not be very healthy because of the fact that the real estate prices are high in big cities. So I think it's very important that we drive rural growth. The farming productivity also can improve, and interventions in technology. So technology can play a very important role, whether it's farming or whether it's healthcare or whether it's education. And I think if all that is done, then I think there will be a lot of opportunities in rural India for the youth to be present in rural area rather than trying to be in urban cities.
On that note, Mr. Mariwala, we are completely timed out, and we have to end this session here and move on to the next one. But I really want to share my gratitude with you. for participating at Global Trends Festival and sharing your insights. And I definitely want to say on behalf of all the speakers here, as well as all the people who are participating as audience, we look forward to your book, your first book. Congratulations and all the very best.
Yes, first book. First and last, I think. First and last, I'm sure. Thank you very much.